So recently I read book one and book two of the children's graphic novel series Haru, which would be spring and summer. I haven't read book three. I think it's out by now. But I went to this book because it was gorgeous. The art is just phenomenal. The atmosphere is it's just great. But I was more and more disappointed the more I read. And let me kind of break that down. There were three main reasons I was disappointed with books. The first one is I'm not one of these people who thinks that you should shelter kids too much from books. And there are some books that aren't really age appropriate. I get that. And I also understand that you can read books and not believe everything you read. I understand that. But it is very obvious that a part of the author's soul is always captured in the words that he writes. You can see some of the things he believes in, some of the things that he condones and whatnot. And I say that to just say this. There are some questionable evil themes in the book. Reversal of light and dark, right and wrong. Not some things that seem like they're trying to be intentionally blasphemous. Just some questionable evil themes. Now, once again, I understand that it's a fantasy book. I get that. But some of the things that were said were kind of like borderline of, you're talking right into kids. Kids are kind of impressionable. So I'm of the opinion that you shouldn't write books that brainwash them from an early age. And some of these things just kind of seemed a little bit iffy. But it didn't stop there. The characters themselves are very unlikable. They're excessively whiny. They are not smart. They just kind of sit around whining and crying about things all the time. They don't find solutions. They find problems. And those two issues right there were very troubling. But then the third one was the use of transgenderism. Now, I'm not one of these people who thinks that gays should not be in books or that, trans shouldn't have equal rights. I'm not one of those people, okay? I have zero problem. What I have a problem with is people trying to push their agenda in a kid's book. I don't understand why it is a hot take to say that sexuality should not be in kids' books. I don't understand why that is controversial. That's called grooming. That's called, brainwashing. That's not something that people should be doing in kids' books. What should be happening in kids' books is they should be maybe educational. That's fine. You can be teaching lessons. That's fine. You can be building their sense of wonder and awe. That's fine. You can be helping them to process their emotions. That's fine. But the way this was done in this book was just not well done, and it wasn't really age appropriate. So when I say it was well done, what I'm talking about is the use of pronouns was confusing in how it was worded. Like, they could have reworded it in a way that was better. And I know right there's going to be the keyboard warriors who are all like, you're anti-trans. I didn't say that. I said it was worded poorly. If you're going to have pronouns, which, once again, I don't think you should have that kind of stuff in kids' books, one way or another, it just shouldn't be a part of the conversation with kids. I really just don't think so. And that doesn't make me anti-gay or anti-trans. I don't feel like that's appropriate. But if you are going to do it, you really have to make sure you do a good job on it. You can't just, I threw in some trans stuff, therefore I'm super woke. You can't do that. Like, that's not what it means. Like, if you're going to commit to something, do a good job on it. I actually get real frustrated because there's a lot of times that people in construction will say, I'm a Christian, so you hire them and they do a crappy job. And say, well, maybe if you're going to do such a crappy job, just leave Jesus out of it. Right there. I personally do not agree with the trans ideology. However, that's not the issue in this book. The issue that I had with this book is really those three things. It had things that felt like it was too evil for the age, and like it was trying to say something more than just a fantasy world. You know what I mean? Kind of like implying lessons for kids to take into their life. And I don't feel like you should do that kind of stuff. Then the second thing was the whiny characters. There was nothing here for kids to look up to. They weren't even good, like, three-dimensional characters. They were very one-dimensional. And then the third thing being the transgender context just didn't really seem to fit. Start with the summary. What was the summary of this book? It's your basic, kids on an adventure to stop the evil. Okay. Or at least that's kind of how it seemed. I kind of started tuning it out once it got worse and worse, and I just kind of tried to suffer through it. Then I ended book 2, and I was like, I'm done. Content-wise, what does this have? It has some, religiously speaking, it has some confusion for evil and dark and light. I'm concerned that it might be a little bit too much for younger age groups. Violence, and language, not really a thing. Not really a thing. Sexual content, not really a thing. It does have LGBTQ content, and those are really my only thoughts about the book. As far as good things about it, it really was very gorgeous. It's just a great looking book. Now, one more thing I'd like to mention about this before I close out this review. I'm not trying to rag on Joe Latham. I'm glad that he has things that he believes in. That's fine. Whatever. And also, I know that when people watch things, they have this uncanny ability to not use their brains at all, and instead they hop on the kind of bandwagon. Like, okay, this guy has to fit in one of the boxes in my head. So he has to be a religious, fundamentalist, conservative, voted for Trump, he's MAGA, he's the problem. That's a lot of assumptions to make based off of a few simple comments about age-appropriate books. So let's not turn this into a attack on the random guy that I have no idea and know nothing about. However, I would love to hear your thoughts on Haru. Am I the only one who didn't enjoy this, who didn't think that things were, right? It just seemed off in this book.